I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this time we are going back to 1993 to review Jurassic Park, brought to us by Steven Spielberg, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, Richard Attenborough, Samuel L. Jackson. Yep, this film was a big event for us when we were younger.
Big event for many people.
Yeah, I'm sure this will be, for many people, this was probably their Star Wars or their Jaws, or their James Bond. This still is to this day one of the best known films of the 90s and one of the most successful films of the 90s.
Yeah, one of the most successful films of all time.
All time.
It's created a huge billion-dollar franchise. It's a landmark in CGI special effects. Lots of reasons why we're covering it, but obviously we're getting topical as always. So with the release of the latest installment, which is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, obviously 25 years since Jurassic Park came out.
So yeah, a great time to do it. So all of the usual stuff, we'll start off with some production chat, we'll then talk about our first memories, and then we'll just quickly skip through focusing on what works and what doesn't. We'll tail off with some coulda, woulda, shoulda. But before we go any further, here's a quick word from George on some general housekeeping.
Yes, so to borrow a phrase from another podcast, we are film lovers, not experts. We aim to entertain. There might be the odd bit of information that we get wrong, but we hope there's going to be some trivia over the next hour or so that something you might have not known about the film. So we're going to go into detail about the film, so there will be spoilers from the very off, but it's Jurassic Park, everyone has seen it. There will be bad impressions, probably we'll be doing a little bit of Jeff Goldblum over the next hour. There might be the odd bit of colourful language, so if you have little children around, you may need to press play and listen to it at a later date.
So we are in the operations room, we're locked out of the computer right now thanks to an annoying GIF, but we're hoping, we're just going to go and pop the power back on.
It's alright, I've worked it out because it's a Unix system.
Right, okay, so George has got a CD-ROM, he's going to pop it in his Unix system just as soon as the AOL dial-up kicks in. And we're going to start recording. So enjoy the show.
Enjoy.
There it is. Welcome to Jurassic Park.
The most phenomenal discovery of our time.
How'd you do this?
Becomes the greatest adventure of all time. Universal Pictures presents
Hold on to your butts.
a Steven Spielberg film.
Fences are failing all over the park.
An adventure.
I can't get Jurassic Park back online.
65 million years in the making. Jurassic Park.
So George, Jurassic Park, first memories. Now, I do remember this was a family outing. I was like 13 going on 14, you were 9 or 10.
Yes, yeah.
We did go and see this as a family.
So yeah, it came out, I think it came out start of June, 1993. And yeah, it was a family outing to the Metro Centre, the old UCI there. Yeah, it was an event film. Then, everyone was going to see it. It was a huge blockbuster. Obviously, it had so much PR behind it in terms of...
Do you remember that video? Because the first trailer was bonkers. It was fed to us completely seriously. And it was like the scientific process. It wasn't actually a trailer for the film.
Oh, it was all about the DNA.
It was all about how they got the DNA out of a mosquito. And you watch it.
Yeah.
It was sold as this is real. This is possible. And I think I read on Twitter the other day that scientists have actually said, there's a great, I don't know if it was on Facebook group, on the Empire group, but somebody said, scientists have now proven that in a few years we will be able to reproduce dinosaurs. And somebody's put, I think there's at least 5 films
suggesting this is a bad idea.
Exactly. But it was sold to us like, this is possible. And Maybe it was age, maybe it was good marketing and not seeing through it, but I believed it.
Yeah,
I believe him.
Well, that's it. It was, you know,
it made sense.
If you think of the 90s, there was a lot of talk about genetic experimentation, cloning, Dolly the sheep,
DNA,
and all that jazz. So this film was really impressionistic on me. I had a Velociraptor poster on my wall. I'd got free, like a 3D poster in the Fun Day Times, if anyone remembers.
Got to give them a shout out.
Yeah, and I had that up before the film came out, and then after the film came out, I had to take it down because the Velociraptor was terrifying me and I couldn't sleep at night. So yes, the film had a big impression on me, and I had the toys. So I had...
you had the toys? I don't remember the toys.
Yeah, I had a Jeep that sort of broke apart. I had a very muscly looking Alan Grant. A very muscly... I'll share it on the blog, but they did Dennis Nedry, you know, the geeky IT guy. They did like a muscly version of him, and he had a flamethrower.
Makes sense.
Some artistic licensing going on there. Yeah, I properly sort of bought into the whole thing as a kid, but I was obviously, you know, target market. I mean, which kid doesn't love dinosaurs?
Yeah, and my only introduction to dinosaurs before this film, as you'd imagine, was the highly educational Dinosaur Transformers.
Of course, of course.
So I wondered why they weren't transforming and made of metal, but no, I think everybody got something from this film. So George, how did this film get made? There is quite some history in there was a lot of fighting over who was going to make this film, wasn't there?
Yeah, so as many people will probably know, Jurassic Park is based on a novel written by the late Michael Crichton. So Michael Crichton was a best-selling author all the way from the 70s and 80s. So the Andromeda Strain, he's the guy that wrote and directed the original Westworld. And obviously Westworld has had a bit of a revival recently. But that's based, and obviously it's very similar theme of robots going nuts in a theme park is not that far away from dinosaurs going nuts in a theme park.
Yeah.
So yeah, he had written this novel, and even before it was published, it had practically got into a bidding war. And Crichton actually has history with Spielberg. They became friends in the 70s, and I think Spielberg gave him a bit of help when I say Michael Crichton did some directing himself. So he actually shared an early draft of the script with Spielberg in the spring of 1990, but the actual book wasn't released until I think November that year. So yeah, it entered a bidding war even before the book was published. So his agent circulated the book to various studios and directors. So Warner Brothers wanted Tim Burton to direct it, our friend Tim Burton.
Just imagine.
Which, yeah, would have been goth dinosaurs.
Goth dinosaurs and the Danny Elfman soundtrack.
Johnny Depp running away from dinosaurs. Helena Bonham Carter as a dinosaur.
Yeah. The voice of a dinosaur.
Yes, a very posh dinosaur. And Columbia wanted Richard Donner. Again, that could be a really interesting choice. So Richard Donner is, you know, cracking director, gave us the Goonies, Superman, Lethal Weapon. 20th Century Fox wanted it for, again, another retro Rambo hero, Joe Dante, the director of Gremlins. Spielberg has a relationship. He was sort of embedded with Universal Pictures, so Universal wanted Spielberg to direct. Mm-hmm. But recently, a really interesting tidbit came out in the past year that it emerged that James Cameron wanted to buy the rights for the film, and he apparently lost out in the space of a few hours.
Just imagine that. You just know that Cameron wouldn't have done the DNA thing. He would have built a time machine. Well, and then the second film would have been the dinosaurs come back into present day.
Well, he even said, Cameron said that he realised that Spielberg was the best choice because it would a sort of a faithful adaptation of the novel, whereas in Cameron's words, it would have been Aliens but with dinosaurs, and wouldn't have been very fair to children. So I've got some more trivia on Cameron's vision, which I will talk about in Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda. So yeah, as I say, Spielberg and Universal got the rights. I mean, Spielberg was Crichton's first choice anyway. They paid the princely sum of $2 million for the film rights, and Crichton worked on the screenplay with writer David Koepp, but Spielberg was only allowed to there was conditions for making this film, so obviously it was a big deal for Universal. They'd invest a lot in it, but Spielberg his passion project at that time was he wanted to make Schindler's List, and Universal said, we'll give you all the funding to do Schindler's List, but you have to do Jurassic Park first. So it was basically those conditions. It's sort of like one for you, one for us.
But he was doing both of them almost at the same time.
Yeah, back to back. This was as we talked about in Batman, this film was huge in terms of the merchandising rights, the licensees. Apparently, McDonald's, a host of other. I mean, it was a big deal for Universal because it was basically going to
theme park rights.
Yeah, part of their theme parks, lunch boxes. Apparently, like thousands of separate merchandising spin-offs, and apparently generated, I think, $68 million for all these different licenses, which accumulated about $1 billion worth of revenue across all those different licensees.
It's not about making money, George. It's about telling a story.
By telling a story. Being a Spielberg film, he had surrounded himself with the same sort of people we've talked about previously. So we've on our last film, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it had Kathleen Kennedy, and she was producing it. And in her words, she said, it's just one of those projects that was obviously a Steven Spielberg film. He's interested in those themes of extraordinary things happening to ordinary people, and
fair dues.
For Spielberg, he says in the documentaries, there's a brilliant actually a documentary available on Sky all about Spielberg and his career, and he talks about the two things that hooked him were dinosaurs and DNA, and that point that you were talking about in terms of the teaser trailer, the fact that the realistic aspect that this could actually happen.
Yeah.
Again, like Raiders, every single action sequence in this film was storyboarded almost 2 years before they even shot the scenes. So it shows how meticulous Spielberg is in terms of capturing that action.
I think he's learned from mistakes. He knows what he's doing,
And I think that's why, and it's obviously keeps him within budget as well.
Well, I think the thing about his films is that he's always got a certain way that he wants to tell a story. We've talked about this because obviously, apologies, we have covered a number of Spielberg films, but I mean, come on, the guy's up there. He will go down in history as one of the best directors of all time, and obviously from the 80s and 90s. But he has a certain way of balancing a film with action, scares, and I wouldn't say schmaltzy, but some slightly corny, cheesy moments to kind of give it a bit more heft.
Yeah,
give the film a bit more meaning.
And yeah, it's
raise the stakes.
I mean, I think the thing about Spielberg, and it must be tough because a lot of people were quite sneery about him being just a blockbuster director, and I think that's why he wanted to try and do more personal projects like Schindler's List, and he's doing a lot more stuff these days, a lot more sort of serious and weighty stuff. That's why it was actually quite nice to see him go back and do something fun like Ready Player One. But watching this film again, it just reminded me so much of Jaws.
Yeah, me too. So much of Jaws.
In terms of that tension through, it's what you don't see.
Yeah, and what you hear.
Yeah,
it's what you hear and what you see. Yeah, what you can't put your finger on. The rustling bushes is what were you saying to me? It's replacing the
chopping of waves. The sort of rustling, through. It's amazing how much you can convey, how much tension you can, by some rustling bushes and some really effective sound effects. But that obviously takes us on to the special effects.
Are these characters erotica?
No.
This film, as I say, is a landmark film for CGI. And it annoys me slightly because obviously the real sort of benchmark for me, that groundbreaking CGI, was 2 years earlier with Terminator 2.
Yeah.
But it is the same people that are behind it. So ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, who were a company first started by George Lucas for Star Wars. So the original plan and what had been done previously for dinosaur films was to do a mix of animatronics and stop motion. So there's a guy called Phil Tippett, who is a legendary stop motion animator, and he was brought on board to look at, okay, how can we do it with stop motion with maybe some minimal CGI enhancements?
Yeah, just to make it look slightly.
Yeah. However, because of their work on Terminator 2, ILM, and a guy that was leading it, a guy called Dennis Muren, they learned so much doing the T-1000 effects with like metals and stuff. And they were like, we think we can crack it with CGI, like completely. And Spielberg his words were, we'll prove it, do a test reel for me. So they did some tests and they showed it to everyone, and including poor Phil Tippett. And as soon as they saw the test footage, Phil Tippett's words were, I'm extinct. my job is ruined. But there was still a bit of hope for poor Phil, because
they didn't go all the way. They weren't going to do everything in CGI.
Well, they still used a lot of stop motion. So for part of the storyboarding process, Phil Tippett did all the stop motion for that. But they also created this thing called DID, the Dinosaur Input Device. So it was basically a posable animatronic model, but it had sensors on it that was programmed into the computer. So, because the great thing about Phil Tippett's sort of craft was he captured the movement accurately that you couldn't get in a...
Mimic the gestures.
Yeah. It's in a similar way that we talk about in terms of motion capture, with the dots and things like that. It was a stop motion version of how the dinosaurs could move. So, and that was recorded into the computer. But the genius thing with this film is that merge between what's real and what's CGI, because there was still a huge amount of animatronics done by the late, great Stan Winston. So Stan Winston, again, we've talked about him before, because he is, he was all over the 80s and 90s, the man responsible for giving us the Terminator endoskeleton. He built the Alien Queen. He gave us the Predator. So his Creature Studio created all these real-life animatronics that were computer-controlled by puppeteers. And it's amazing seeing the behind-the-scenes footage of like people, like all the puppets and stuff, like how they're remotely controlling stuff, and the fact that these things were so big and real that people, really were a bit terrified by this life-size animatronic T-Rex.
Yeah, I can imagine that tearing around the office. But, I hear all this, George. It all sounds fancy, sounds quick, but it sounds expensive. Wouldn't it be cheaper to get a monkey, put the monkey in a dinosaur suit, and then a trained chimpanzee, obviously? I think that they missed a trick there. Maybe they learned...
I think that guy was still doing the rounds at the Universal Backlot. Hey, come on, guys. You can put a dinosaur outfit on him.
Why invest in this expensive animatronic technology when I've got Pogo
the monkey?
Yeah, he's up for it.
There was this huge amount of special effects work required. So we talked about, Spielberg filmed this and Schindler's List back to back. So much so he was so he'd done the production on Jurassic Park, went straight into shooting Schindler's List in Poland. And what he was having to do via satellite link-up was he was doing all the post-production editing with ILM based in San Francisco. So he would shoot Schindler's List during the day, then go back to his hotel room and do post-production on Jurassic Park. So he was like finding it very emotionally draining. Mm-hmm. But interestingly, I found out in my research that to keep Universal happy, because they were obviously a little bit concerned he was a bit removed from the editing, Spielberg brought in George Lucas to oversee any production that he physically couldn't manage.
Wow.
I think maybe putting some lightsabers in there. And I think that's it in terms of the special effects, the
but everybody knew this was going to be a big film. That's why there were so many studios going after it, so many big names. You just look at the premise. It's like, what, we're bringing dinosaurs back? Yeah, and they're all on an island, and it's a theme park, and
Well, that's it. I mean, Crichton was such a powerhouse author. It was like, the must-read novel of the time. And
well, I remember this. This was the first time I'd seen it where, because obviously the timing of him bringing in Spielberg and involving him before the book had released, I remember this being a big thing. I remember before, it was in the run-up, it was part of the marketing. It was like based on the best-selling novel by Michael Crichton, but the book had hardly been out. But it was like the book was out, And I didn't see the book until after in shops, until after I recognized the logo, which you see everywhere throughout the film, which is pointed out by Honest Trailers. But yeah, it was the first time that I can remember of this book tying, and obviously the name of Michael Crichton, who has gone on to do, some other great stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think he died of cancer about 5-10 years ago, maybe more. So yeah, he did quite a few big novels. There's Westworld, there's the Andromeda Strain, there's Jurassic Park, The Lost World, one of our sort of favourite novels. He's a very cinematic writer. Yeah. One of our favourite novels, Timeline, which was a terrible film. Ironically,
that is a film that definitely needs to be remade. That was a great book. Yeah. Sorry, a book that should be, somebody should have another stab at that.
Yes, well, that was actually, bizarrely linking back to that was made by Richard Donner, the Timeline film. So yeah, that was, a real...
I can't even remember that film. I know that we watched it together.
It's got Paul Walker and Gerard Butler, and need I say more?
No, that's enough.
Yeah, so I think that's it in terms of, I'm going to talk about the differences between the novel and the film. I think I'll talk about after the review, because there's
we don't want to spoil our own spoiler podcast.
Yes, exactly. So should we get cracking with the main review?
Yeah, I mean, I love the way this film starts. It's a bit of there's some long introductions of characters.
Well, you and I were talking about this. Like, I completely forgot about the opening of this film.
Well, yeah, the scene on the island with the escaped, I'm guessing, raptor. Because I saw that, I was like, this is the trailer from The Lost World. And I was like, no, this is...
Well, that's it. I mean, it's, again, I think that's that sort of, that has that echoes of Jaws, that sort of, you don't know what's in there, and there's a lot of palpable tension.
It's all
it's the sound effects, it's the lights,
smoke. Brilliantly presented.
And it's a really bold and quite scary opening. And it's a bit like, same with Jaws, with the guy and the girl go for a swim, and then all of a sudden she's being dragged around. It's really, really shocking. And yeah, I completely forgot. I thought the film just opened with Alan Grant digging in the desert.
That's how I remember it, and I think it's how you remember it. Alan Grant terrorizing children with claws. He'd got you from here to here.
Yeah, he's great with kids. And I also forgot about the quite sort of, seems a bit like unnecessary bit, which feels like an excerpt from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're digging for amber. The lawyers being dragged along on that water platform in the middle of the jungle or whatever.
Yeah.
To
reinforce the PR. But I mean, I forget, because we were just talking about that opening scene where the raptor pulls that guy. But that's the reason why they have to have the experts visit the island, isn't it? Because there's been a fatality.
Yes. So
this is the first.
So yeah, in the novel, it's actually, there's quite a long drawn out bit in the book about the dinosaurs have actually reached the mainland, and there's been a few people, like these small dinosaurs have been attacking small children, and that's when it sort of gets through. They find this part of a dinosaur tail on the beach, and Alan Grant gets to sort of analyze it, and that's when John Hammond brings him in because the whole insurance claim, but they condense that whole bit, and I think they use bits of that novel in the Lost World film. I think it opens with that, with a little girl getting attacked by little dinosaurs. But yeah, as you say, it's all down to an insurance claim. That's why Alan and his smoking hot assistant are brought on board.
Is it his assistant? Is it his wife?
No, they are a couple. And again, that's something that is been invented for the film. In the novel, Grant's a bit older, and Ellie Statler is effectively his grad student. There's no romance between them, but I think it adds to the tension. Obviously, there's a little bit of frisson with our favourite man, Mr. Goldblum.
Well, there is. I've made a point of saying I love the running jokes in this film. Basically, that Sam Neill is a klutz, not ready to have kids. Typical dad jokes. Terrible with technology.
Yeah.
Whereas Goldblum is a cool genius, and he's just hitting on Sam Neill's girl for the entirety of the film, and she's a flirt. She's flirting with it. She's loving
the attention. I mean, he's a rock star mathematician.
Exactly. And whereas Sam Neill is getting excited about bones. But they're in the middle of a dig John Hammond turns up, and they just like, we can't, we're working. Oh no, we'll do anything for money.
Yeah, sort of like, how much did you say?
Yeah,
and the one thing that you and I, shows that we haven't watched this for some time, we're both surprised that John Hammond's Scottish.
Hear what I mean, pal? When he turns up, he's got a really thick sports shorts. He's got a really
but then it sort of
accent.
Fades up by the end of the film. He's just like,
he has some English,
typical Dickie Attenborough,
and I think he goes a bit Irish at one point as well. So his accent is all over the show.
Great to see Dickie Attenborough. He's got like such a presence. Obviously, Richard Attenborough he's an actor. He's obviously a legendary director as well, and he was a massive hero of Spielberg. So
to get him for this film,
and I think it was the first role he did, I think, in over like 15 years. So it was, a big deal to get him back into a film. But you can see on the behind the scenes footage, it's really like sweet that him and Spielberg's just like full of glee working with one of his heroes.
Yeah,
he was also like gave a lot of input into how the character should be of Hammond.
Well, he does a good job. I mean, obviously at the start he's so passionate. It's his project, and it's like spared no expense.
Well, I think we should say from there can be a great drinking game of how many times he says spared no expense.
Yeah, because it's actually nicely punctuated throughout the film. But his character arc is he just does a great job. I mean, but it descends, But that's where his real acting comes. Acting,
acting, dear boy.
Yeah, it comes out at the end when obviously it's all going a bit Pete Tong.
Really spectacular. Spared no expense.
And spared no expense.
Spared no expense. We spared no expense.
Spared no expense.
We're introduced to Dr. Grant and Statler. We've met the very Scottish, well, at that point anyway, John Hammond. But then we go to San Jose. The beach on San Jose, even though it's in the middle of Costa Rica, but don't worry about that. Apparently that was annoyed when it was shown in Costa Rica. The theatre owner scratched or blurred the tag at the bottom screen that said San Jose because they didn't want to offend people by saying, because San Jose is nowhere near the coast.
Yeah.
But we've got our first introduction to Dennis Nedry, the evil hacker that's selling off the DNA and again, that's something the novel spends a lot more time.
Isn't it the eggs?
Yes, the embryos.
The dino embryos.
But then it's quick we get to meet everyone else. So we get to meet the marvellous Jeff Goldblum with that amazing laugh.
What a laugh.
And also, so it's released Jeff Goldblum, but it's also released John Williams' amazing score.
Yeah.
I think our first proper dino sighting is about 20 minutes in.
And in terms of characters, one of our favourite characters, and the one who's still earning the most money out of them, the first time we hear Samuel L. Jackson, the first two times that we hear him, and it's spread out, you still haven't met him, it's over the PA system.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's it's one of the things that you forget about that. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson at that time was just a jobbing, bit part actor.
But such a distinctive voice.
Yeah, and that's it's just like, that's Samuel. And yeah, it's nuts to think that, as you say, he's probably the biggest earning actor out of all those stars now. But yeah, we get to see the first dinosaurs, and the CGI does have a real weight to it, and it obviously helps with, that's when John Williams' score really sort of comes into, I mean, it's, that score is iconic. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
We haven't got time to spend too much time with the dinosaur because we need to know, how did the dinosaurs get here?
Yeah.
And instead of...
It's Jennifer Aniston. Here's the science bit.
Yeah, whereas instead of general exposition, we have Mr. DNA.
Yeah.
And to be fair to Crichton and David Koepp, it's a really good way to condense the science stuff.
And get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah.
For Spielberg, he said it was, he realizes that the film's too long. He said, he goes, I already know it's too long in the first 45 minutes. There's nothing I can do about it because I feel it's important that some of the background terms of chaos theory and DNA cloning set the stage for the audience. So for the second half of the film, you don't have to worry about thinking it.
You can just sit back and enjoy the action.
Yeah, and that's it. The thing that keeps coming through in the behind the scenes is the realism that they didn't want this to be fancy. As you say, they wanted you to make it, this could actually happen.
Yeah.
Because it makes it more terrifying.
I just love it. It does look a little bit dated. Smoking is cool and everywhere.
Well, no, but the thing is, it's like the amount that Samuel L. Jackson smokes in the film, you know he's going to die.
Yeah.
But there's the close-ups where he's basically just smoking the filter.
Yeah.
So we get to finally meet Samuel Jackson as the man who's running the operations. We get to meet the scientists who are making it, the eggs.
Yeah, but it's okay. We made them all female.
What could possibly go wrong?
There's one thing the history of evolution has taught us. It's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free. It expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously. But, there it is. Life finds a way.
Goldblum has some of the best dialogue in this film. It's really snappy dialogue. I mean, one of the things that the book is guilty of, it goes into Crichton has a real hard-on for chaos theory and spends a lot of time delving into it, whereas they make it really nice and concise in this film.
My question is Goldblum acting, following a script, or just being Jeff Goldblum?
Life finds a way. There it is.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. I mean, again, there's a lot of teasing of the raptors. We don't see the raptors till quite late on in the film, so we're still just getting the sound effects, the rustling of the bushes, spared no expense. And then we're introduced to this being a Spielberg film, the child characters.
Yes, let's bring in some child characters so people can resonate with that.
And as with any Spielberg film, they are children of divorce. But again, that sort of adds stakes, to the film. There's obviously that childish wonder, and you get to see the fancy cars with an interactive CD-ROM.
Wow. I mean, wave of the future.
They actually enter Jurassic Park, and we get Mr. Goldblum, what's chaos theory? So with his little trick with the butterfly effect and
the water running down, which is kind of a bit, I don't know.
Well, it's just a chance for Goldblum to get a bit sleazy.
Yeah. We do love him.
We do love the Goldblum.
By the end of the film, we really want Timmy to die.
I think it's safe to say that, yes, we do want little Timmy to die.
Why can't he just die? Be a good little kid, but no. And there's this other running joke where the kids keep saying, he's going to leave us. He's like, no, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you. Just wait here. Bye. And then leaves them again. It's like,
So we get to see that Alan Grant really doesn't like kids.
And they kind of want him to be their dad. Like, straight away, they're like,
I will be your father figure.
Yeah, it's immediate.
It's immediate. They're on the tour, but shit's going to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's fences. Everything's protected. Oh, no.
Spared no expense. But I haven't paid my IT guy enough.
Yeah. I should have paid him a little bit more money. And we didn't really have a plan for when there's a bit of, when there's a storm, we just evacuate.
Yeah, just get out. I don't know if I've spotted, but I remember seeing something online. There's quite a big goof when Nedry is planning his escape. He's talking to the boat captain, and he's like, I can only wait so long. He's talking to him via video. If you actually look at the screen, it's just a movie file. There's a play button, and you're just seeing the tracking thing. It's just like an Apple MOV file, Yeah. So this is a bit of trivia, and I'm not sure if you are aware of this, because it actually only came out. Somebody only spotted it as late as last year. But there is a connection to Goonies with this film. Do you know what it is?
Do I know what it is? No.
Dennis Nedry's outfit, he has basically he is an amalgamation of 3 different characters from the Goonies.
I can see the jacket, yeah.
So I'm going to show you this now. So apologies, dear listeners. I'm going to show. I've got this something on my screen that I'm going to show Charlie.
This will be on the blog.
But yes, we will share it on the blog. But effectively, when we first
I'm just thinking I can see Mikey's jacket already.
Yeah, when we see firstly Dennis Nedry, he's wearing a lovely Hawaiian shirt on the beach, just like Chunk is, and it is pretty much an identical shirt. Then he's wearing as you say, a grey sort of bomber jacket that Mouth wears from Corey Feldman's character. And then finally, when he's making his escape, he's wearing a yellow Mac, just like Mikey.
And technically, looking at that last shot, he's actually wearing all 3.
Exactly. So
that's a bit of a tenuous. I mean, whoever spotted that? Well, that must have just. That sounds like water cooler chat. That's probably one of the behind the scenes of the crew or something. Do you know what I mean? Or that's probably been in a book or something.
It just seems like such a bizarre little Easter egg to put in there. But it's just nuts that it's taken obviously with the magic of social media and what have you, someone as late as last year
spotting this,
almost 25 years to spot it.
Nice little nugget of information. So Sam Neill's being really awkward with kids, and we're okay with the girl, but we both really want Timmy to die, and it's looking like it could happen.
Because we've got the shit starts going wrong, so all the power's down. They break down in front of the T-Rex pen, and this is probably, would you say, one of the most, something we talked about lots in Raiders, one of the most iconic pieces of popular cinema.
It still looks amazing today.
But that whole thing of tension, the vibration.
Yeah, I mean, I can do it right now. Just hit the table, see the water thing, and it was parodied in so many things. And I mean, it was making its mark, and nobody will ever forget that. It's like sound, then a little bit of sight, and just like soft and just brilliant building of tension.
And apparently this came from Spielberg's idea. He called up the effects guys and he goes, I'm thinking about how do we build up that tension of the T-Rex arriving? And he's like, I've been listening to some music in my car and I noticed the bass was making my wing mirror shake. Can we do that? But what else can we do? And they actually recreated that effect of the ripples on the water by, I think, attaching a guitar string underneath the dashboard and twanging a guitar string effectively. Yeah. That created the right effect. It's such an amazing scene because the whole joke is they go on the tour and they don't see any dinosaurs.
Careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Because the T-Rex is not there. They're like, I wanted to see that.
Where's the goat?
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just such a master in tension. So that's when it goes nuts. It attacks the kids' car. The kids they're panicking. Alan Grant's the only one who knows what to do because he knows so much about them. I don't know how he knows that the T-Rex can't sense movement, but that is a brilliant scene where he's just sat and grabbing the girl and the T-Rex is just millimeters away from them.
No, it's a brilliant scene.
Obviously, Jeff Goldblum is a genius, but he doesn't know what to do. He runs off with a flare, gets himself injured.
And immobilized, kind of.
And potentially, is it Jeff Goldblum's fault because he leads the dinosaur to
the toilet? Yeah, he gets the lawyer whacked.
Yeah, the lawyer who's think of the money.
Yeah. Put that down. Is it heavy? It's expensive.
Yeah, that's a great line.
As I say, we've had the characters developed, we've had the story set, everything's in place, and then it just descends. And I think one of the best kills, in my opinion, is that dinosaur that takes out Dennis, the one that blinds
Nedry.
Nedry.
Well, I realise it's been a while that we've done quite a few podcast episodes and we haven't mentioned our old neighbours, the Glendinings. But James Glendinning, a memory I have of his is he does a brilliant impression of that particular dinosaur. So. So James, if you're listening,
get it on video.
Get it on video. Send it in so we can share it with the listeners. That is because it's it's a
nice, friendly little one.
It's hopping around.
Yeah.
Apparently, that dinosaur is completely made up. That it doesn't have spitting venom. It doesn't have the frilly cobra thing. But they are.
It doesn't blind you before it kills.
But it works. It works. It's a great scene. It's poetic justice for Nedry.
Yeah.
Getting whacked. And then I think that cuts to...
Well, then they're just like trying to escape, aren't they? They want to actually get away from the T-Rex. They go back to the center. There's no power.
Well, there's so you've got, I mean, that T-Rex scene, you think it's all over, but then the car gets thrown into the tree.
Oh God, you have forgotten Timmy's still not dead.
Timmy still hasn't died. Timmy's in the car.
And you think Timmy should be dead. And they think Timmy's dead.
They think Timmy's dead. Then the car starts falling down the tree. I mean, it just keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Piling on the tension.
Even though
I'm raising the stakes.
Even though I'm a little bit confused. And I think, again, this is a bit of a mistake that all of a sudden there's a massive drop down the side of the T-Rex pen that wasn't there beforehand.
Was that not with the T-Rex coming over there?
Yeah, but the T-Rex steps over and then there's all of a sudden a massive drop. So where did that come from?
I thought that was created by the T-Rex.
Anyway.
Call Steven Spielberg right now.
But then there's the whole bit with the T-Rex versus the Jeep when they go to rescue Jeff Goldblum. Let's go faster. Let's go faster.
Yeah, and that which is parodied brilliantly in Toy Story.
Yes, is he known as Rex in Toy Story?
I think he's called Rex in Toy Story, where they're trying to drive away and he's in the wing mirror.
Yeah, no, I mean that is a great side gag. The objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear.
Yeah, objects in the rearview mirror. But it also showed how big a deal Jurassic Park was. The fact it was being parodied in a film like Toy Story. Well, it's
parodied in Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Give me the flashlight, Wayne.
Yeah, it was the zeitgeist of the time.
Quickly gets into how do they get the power back on. So Samuel isn't going to make it.
Yeah.
And apparently, I think there was...
He's died in a lot of his films. He does not care about dying, as we've seen in Deep Blue Sea.
I think he did originally have a different death scripted, but the filming, so they were filming in Hawaii, and there was a massive tropical storm that halted filming, and I don't know if it ruined any sets, but it's on the behind the scenes. There was this huge, I think it was a hurricane, so it really affected the filming, and apparently one of the anecdotes is that Dickie Attenborough slept through the entire thing, and they're like, how did you sleep through a hurricane? He's like, well, dear boy, I survived the Blitz, so I can sleep through anything.
But Hawaii's like that. I've been there, and it's just like when you see people's pictures of Hawaii with sun, that's not what it's like. It's an island, there's constant weather systems, and when I was there was a storm that took out the beach. Created a ravine, and there was water coming down the mountains.
Oh wow!
And I mean, it is a crazy place that you can drive from the beach. And then you can go up into like what looks like Welsh countryside with cows, and then you keep going higher, and then it turns into like volcanic, so it looks like Mars.
Yeah,
and it's all within half an hour's drive.
Well, I suppose that's why it's a bit like Iceland in terms of
it's used for so many.
Yeah, it's used for so many films because it's got so many different terrains.
Spared no expense.
Spared no expense. Samuel is sadly killed off screen. We just see as a part of his arm when Statler goes to reboot the generator, being guided via walkie-talkie via a sexy Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, take a left.
And we've got that whole thing with Muldoon, who's the... what is it? Is he security or
he's the only security guy that the island has?
Yeah, so I mean
he's got the only gun.
He's got the only gun, but he's a brilliant actor. I can't really remember what else he's been.
You remember him from having lots of supporting roles.
Yeah, so obviously again one
of those hunting and then becoming hunted by the raptors.
Clever girl. one of my favourite quotes.
Yeah,
that's a great scene where the raptors are hunting him, and that's when the first time we get to properly see the raptors. Again, it's like the Jaws thing. We've gone throughout the whole film without seeing them.
Well, we did have that bit at the start where Dickie Attenborough, and you see the birth of a raptor. It's like, I'm not insane, I'm not obsessed with birth, but I have to be here. I'm the first person to touch these animals.
So they bond with me.
Yeah, sorry, dinosaurs.
Got that great moment with the rebooting of the system whilst the kids are climbing that perfectly fine electric fence.
That's a good bit of tension building.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like going, still hoping Timmy's going to be toast.
So is Alan Grant. He's really hoping that Timmy's going to buy it as well.
Yeah, take your time, Timmy. Take your time.
Pretty much goes straight into another brilliant moment of tension where the raptors are hunting the kids in the kitchen. And that's
that whole scene in the center with the velociraptors is amazing. Still to this day, I think that's worth pointing out. I made a point of saying to George after watching this that what surprised me, considering the tricks they used to do with CGI to avoid it looking obvious was you tended to get the majority of the big CGI scenes were shot at night. And watching this film again, yes, the T-Rex still stands up. It's great, but I was so impressed with the stuff during the day.
Well, I think that's
stuff in the center when the velociraptors are trying to get the girl, they're trying to get the kids, and it's like trying to get through the door.
Well, I think that's it. That's why this film is probably such a benchmark opposed to Terminator 2, because Terminator 2, the special effects are all around like shiny metal, like the liquid metal, whereas this you had to get muscle tone and shadow and things like that. So it's they have a real sort of. And I think because when Jurassic World came out, and that was 2015, everyone was saying that the special effects look worse than the original Jurassic Park. But I think
because they didn't know physical stuff.
Yeah, they did hardly any animatronics, and I think that's the brilliant thing is that merge between, and again, like we talked about in Terminator 2, there's actually it's so amazing because they've done that seamless blend between what's animatronic and what's CGI.
Yeah.
And there's actually in that whole raptors in the kitchen scene, you think a lot of it is CGI, but as a lot of it's guys wearing the raptors' legs like puppets, artists, performers and stuff like that. So I think that's why it's so well done. It's that perfect sort of balance of real effects and digital effects.
So we have that brilliant scene in the money shot.
One thing that hasn't dated very well, we're talking about, the special effects but the thrill of Lex, the little girl, operating a Unix system.
It's a Unix system. I'm a bit of a hacker.
I love computers.
Yeah.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please! God damn it! I hate this hacker crap.
But yeah, it's a Unix system. What this? This is a CD-ROM.
I think this is down to casting, but another change from the books is that in the book it's the girl is the youngest and the boy's older, and I don't know if it's because Spielberg auditioned the kid who plays Little Timmy. I think he's an actor called Joseph Mazzello or something like that. He was actually auditioned for Hook for Spielberg's last film, but he was deemed too young. And basically Spielberg said, I really like you, kid, but don't worry, I'll save a spot for you in my next film. It's the one about dinosaurs. So I think they changed the ages of the kids round because I say Spielberg really liked this kid. And to be fair, he does a good job in the film. I think bizarrely, he ended up, he's grown up and was in the Pacific, the World War II series of the sequel to Band of Brothers.
Oh, right. Okay. I have not seen that. I love Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers is awesome, but no, I haven't seen the Pacific either. I need to give that a watch. So I suppose, we're at the end. We think the raptors are going to get them. They're going to get, but then the heroic T-Rex turns up to save them.
Yeah, it comes to save the day. You've got the money shot. Somebody gets out, and obviously the kid needs to be resuscitated, so we get some Sam to mouth. It's all right. He's saving a life, and then Alan Grant leaves the kids alone again. But no, the kitchen. Watching this whole thing again, I realized that this is the scene that I think about when I think of this film. Like in my head, I just think them going through the gates. I think of the T-Rex scene, and I think the kitchen scene. But for me, this is everything I love about Spielberg, and it's why I will watch a film with his corny moments, with him plucking our heartstrings, with the soundtrack. I will take all of that because I love what he's able to do with suspense, with action. So I'm willing to take all the other stuff that comes with it. Yeah. And to be fair, I think it's the payoff. I think the suspense and the action actually does, because everything is building up to this, and that kitchen scene is still one of my favorite scenes in cinema. So,
well, that's it. I mean, he is. Yeah, he's a master of the tension, and he really I think, before this film came out, everyone, talks in terms of dinosaurs. It was always about, T-Rex, king of the dinosaurs, Triceratops, but I don't think anyone really knew what a raptor was. And he just, by taking...
No, they were the most...
since he's turned it into, it's a prehistoric version of Jaws. He's turned it into, they're a terrifying creation.
The point I wanted to make that I mentioned before about John Hammond is that I like the fact that he brings his acting chops to the table with when you see everything going wrong and his dream falling apart, is you see him descending and his realization, or, you know, like when he sits down. So it's like, well, that's, yeah, there's brilliant acting.
He does that balance of sort of, he's a little bit mad. He has to be, you know, to think the idea would work. But there's a genuine sadness, you know, that bit where they're having to leave the island, and he's like, you know, you can see it physically taking its toll. And again, it's the Spielberg effect. We've talked about this in the past, and I think it's obviously the input from Richard Attenborough, but. Interestingly, in the novel, he's a much more cynical sort of CEO type guy in terms of Mad Millionaire. I've put in my notes, more Mike Ashley and less Walt Disney. He's very arrogant and brash, and he actually gets killed at the end of the novel. He takes a fall and stumbles, and then starts getting picked off by these little dinosaurs. Yeah. So again, that's something that Spielberg's made him more of a tragic figure, you know, and obviously that by brilliant performance by Attenborough.
But if you just see, it's actually, obviously we're making a joke about, and everybody knows this, how many times he says spared no expense. But it's the last one at the end, it's like, spared no expense. He's like, everything's falling apart, and it's like, where's the thing? He's like, we spared no expense. He's like, it's the line, and I think it's like, you can hear, it's like the descend of his role. Is it the way he says it changes until the last one, where it's almost like a yelp for help. So, I mean, he's got clear talent. I think everyone has a character arc. Like Alan Grant proves that he can be a dad. That he has got the job.
He's good with kids.
Yeah. Helen does prove that even though she's a ridiculous flirt, that she still wants to be with Alan. The only person who doesn't seem to have a character arc is Jeff Goldblum, who
Jeff Goldblum arrives still Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum throughout. But yeah, he's just that scene of him, and we put it on our blog, and it is, you've got to check this out if you've not seen it. In my opinion, it is one of I'd say the cleverest movie gifs I've ever seen. So two gifs from the same film. Sam Neill, where he putting his head on a dinosaur and then being superimposed onto Jeff Goldblum. Just search for it. It is. You will not be disappointed. It's just genius.
Yeah, it is amazing, and it's interesting.
Almost as amazing as Jeff Goldblum.
almost as amazing. I mean, there's some weird memes on this and GIFs. I mean, I was showing Charlie last night, there's, magical few seconds where Jeff Goldblum does this weird laugh. Somebody has edited it on a loop for 10 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah. It's almost hypnotic.
But yeah, interesting. I'll just finish up with the sort of differences between the novel and the film. So yeah, I've talked about Hammond being quite an unlikable character.
About the dinosaurs actually turning up on land first. You talked about that.
Gennaro, so the lawyer, is actually more of a heroic. He's described as being quite tall and buff, and he actually is more sort of proactive in the novel in actually helping save people. But what they've actually done, because there's a character, and I can't remember his name in the novel, but he's basically the head of PR. That's in the novel, and he's the more cowardly, cynical role. So they seem to have taken the PR guy's character traits and transplanted it to Gennaro. So he's a cynical and cowardly lawyer.
Well, when you say cynical, cowardly, and head of PR, I'm thinking around the same sort of time they should have got that guy from License to Kill.
Oh, yes.
The real Weasley guy who's complaining, Sanchez, France, just, think of the money. Yeah, or the guy from Die Hard.
Yes. Oh, Hans Bubby.
Yeah. Sorry, we're going off on tangents here. We're making up our own coulda, woulda, shouldas.
Bizarrely, in the novel, Ian Malcolm, the Jeff Goldblum character, gets mortally injured. So throughout, for the sort of second half of the book, he's basically rambling about, he's doped up on morphine because he's basically bleeding to death, rambling about chaos theory. And it implies that by the end of the film, he's died. But then, due to the success of Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton brings back, he's the lead character in the Lost World. So he retroactively says, no, I said he died. He actually got better.
Yeah, he got saved.
He got saved.
Got hopped on the back of a pelican and flew away.
And the ending is a bit more dramatic in the novel. So, yeah, Hammond's dead by a dinosaur, Malcolm's dead, and the Costa Rican army turn up to napalm the island.
Wow.
Which I think they kind of sort of hint on at the end of Jurassic Park 3, but again, I think they ran out of money. So they turn up, but you don't see anything.
You and I went to see Jurassic Park 3 together, but I cannot remember that film.
I remember liking it. I think it's probably seems to be everyone's least favourite Jurassic Park film. We were talking about this. Neither of us remember seeing all of the Lost World.
I've seen loads of it, but just not in a complete run. It was always on telly or video and stuff. And I just never.
Again, it has some standout moments. There's a brilliant bit where the trailer RV thing is hanging off the
bit I've seen.
The cliff with the cracking glass.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant bit where the raptors are picking off all the hunters in the bushes. Again, it's those moving bushes, and again, it's very Jaws-esque. But then it's the thing that really annoys me about that film, the sort of tacked on ending that like is a rip-off or homage of King Kong, where the T-Rex is loose in, I think, in San Francisco or San Diego.
Yeah, let him loose.
Shall I release Celine Dion?
She's in a box. I think Jeff Goldblum is going to actually release Celine Dion.
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
So, George, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Coulda, woulda, shoulda is when we discuss the actors that were considered but didn't get the roles.
So, very interestingly and unsurprisingly, so Alan Grant, the man wearing a lovely fedora hat, the first person that came to mind for Spielberg was Harrison Ford.
Wow.
And I think he actually turned it down because he didn't feel the part was right for him. And after seeing the film, he said he made the right choice.
Interesting.
But interestingly, for the role of John Hammond, somebody that was actually Scottish was considered another Sir Sean Connery. So imagine having Harrison Ford and Sean Connery in a Spielberg film.
Wow.
I know.
Getting the band back together.
So yeah, that could have been really interesting to see Connery in that role. But yeah, he turned down the role. I think the most interesting coulda, woulda, shoulda, and I'm not sure how accurate, if this is an actual fact or this is fan wish fulfillment, but I talked earlier about James Cameron almost getting the rights to the film. Apparently in James Cameron's version, he wanted to have Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Alan Grant role.
I'll be damned. Oh my God. Can you just imagine?
The raptors share a lot in common with birds.
What? But it would have just descended into one man Arnie taking on the
just
raptors.
Imagine him in a ripped shirt, muscles bulging. But really interestingly, and being a James Cameron film, there was obviously a role for Bill Paxton, and he wanted Bill Paxton to be the Ian Malcolm role. Again, I think that would have worked. And most interestingly, for the role of John Hammond, Charlton Heston.
Yeah, that could work.
From my cold dead hands. But bizarrely enough, and I say I don't know how accurate this fact is, because all three of those actors would go on to star in the 1994 James Cameron film True Lies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That's coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Right, and so what next? I've seen I haven't seen Fallen Kingdom. In terms of the most recent one, Jurassic World, I think we talked about it before. I thought I was expecting more from it. I was expecting a bigger bad, but you've got to see what the idea of the film is to reintroduce the idea of Jurassic Park to a new audience, so it doesn't matter how similar it is to the original. I did actually like the end of Jurassic World. No spoilers really, but I did like the last sort of 10-15 minutes of that film. There was some sort of black comedy moments, the type of thing that I appreciate. But no, I think we have covered everything. George, next Retro Ramble will return. What are we covering next?
We will return, and we'll still be getting topical, because we are going to, with the release of our probably our most anticipated blockbuster of the summer following Avengers Infinity War. There is the release of Mission Impossible 6, also known as Mission Impossible Fallout. Mm-hmm. We will be going back and we will be looking at Mission Impossible 1 and 2 as a special.
Yeah, a special. So we're covering 2 films. We're basically covering the Mission Impossible franchise as it was in the 90s. We don't care if you tell us that MI2 came out in 2000. It was made in 1999. And we will obviously get to the 2000s at some stage. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. George and I, we have a history with especially the second of this film.
We have a fondness for Mission Impossible 2 that many do not have.
Yeah, and there obviously we have, we're hoping to be close to the release of Fallout. So more information on that later from our friends at Paramount. I don't know. I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we're going to go and, I don't know, we're going to go find some amber. We're going to go and sell some dino embryos.
I've chartered us a chopper to Costa Rica because I've spared no expense.
Thanks for listening, and please check us out on all of the channels. We're on retroramble.blog, and on our website's probably the quickest place to go. You'll see all of our other links, but we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we are on
Stitcher.
Stitcher is a new place.
I have also submitted us onto Acast, so that's another podcasting platform. So you can get to the Acast app as well. So yeah, we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're even on YouTube if you want to listen to us through that, but you'll just be looking at a static picture of Charlie and I's faces, so it might not be very fun for you.
But keep the comments and suggestions coming, and obviously if we've made any mistakes or if there's any other trivia that you think should be tacked on, George normally follows up these episodes with a review of his.
I do.
And we very much like to hear from you, so please send those in, and if we've missed anything, it'll definitely get in the review and you'll get a mention.
Follow us on Facebook. We will share, all the things that tickle us in terms of memes and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
In Jurassic Park, scary in the dark. I'm so scared that I'll be eaten.